Oh my, I have a collection on my credit report. Can I still get a mortgage? Let's talk about it. Hey, it's Tim, licensed loan officer. Welcome to the channel. On this channel, we talk about first-time home buyers, buying investment properties, budgeting, having excellent credit, and leveling up. If you like those type of topics, consider subscribing to this channel. Now, in this video, we're going to go over collections and judgments as it relates to getting a mortgage. A lot of people have some collections or maybe have a judgment or maybe an old unpaid bill, and they may want to know how would that affect them getting a mortgage. And on this video, I'm going to go over how lenders look at it, how it affects your debt to income. And also at the end of this video, I'll go over what is a collection and how does it affect your credit and how to remove it. Same thing with judgments. So watch to the end. And if you have questions, comment below. And again, give me a thumb up if you like this video. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so collections for a mortgage, okay? So for a FHA mortgage, if it's non-medical collection and it's $2,000 or less, the payment is calculated at 5% of the balance and must be included in the debt to income, okay? If a payment plan can be documented, then the payment plan can be used instead of the 5%. And this does not apply to medical. So very important, if you have unpaid medical bills, it does not affect your ability to get a mortgage. And if you have any other collections, if it's under $2,000, a lender just uses 5% of the outstanding balance and puts that towards your debt to income. So if you have a collection, you can still get a mortgage. It just goes against your debt to income ratio if it's under $2,000. Okay? Now, if you have a payment plan, then the lender will go off of that payment plan and not your debt to income. Ideally, if you do have a collection, a payment plan is best. So if you do have a collection, I recommend you do a payment plan, something very small, something you can afford, and just stretch it out. Because a lot of times when something's in collection, it's already been sold to a collection agency, and they can usually negotiate a small payment plan. That's why you're taking care of it. If you don't have a payment plan, sometimes that 5% debt to income will be a lot higher, and it can affect your ability or your buying power. That makes sense, your buying power, because it's counted in your debt to income. But you have a small payment plan, $20, $30 a month. It's very small, and it will not affect your buying power for a mortgage. Now let's talk about outstanding collections of $2,000 or greater. So if it's $2,000 or more and it's a collection, okay, let's talk about that one. They're going to verify the debt is paid in full at the time of closing or before settlement. Now, sometimes the underwriter who makes the decision whether you're approved or not may require that to be paid at closing. And the way that would work is that you bring your down payment, your closing costs, and then that inside that amount will be that collection. Now, they don't have to do that. Underwriters do have a little bit of discretion. The next thing they can do is right here is verify that the borrower has made payment arrangements with the creditor and include this into the debt to income. So if you don't have the money to pay off something over $2,000 or greater before closing, which is number one here, you can set up a payment plan. So you can call them up, say you want to pay them, and negotiate an agreement. And that way you have to provide that document, and that will be including your debt to income, but it won't have to be paid at closing. Because if you think about it, if you have your down payment, your closing costs, and on top of a collection that's over $2,000, that could be very expensive, and you may not have enough cash for all that. Now, the third one down here is if a payment arrangement is not available, calculate the monthly payment using 5% of the outstanding balance and include the monthly payment in the debt to income. So the last one here is that if you do contact them and they won't give you a payment plan, you're able to document that, then the underwriter can have discretion and says do the 5% over $2,000. But ideally, the underwriter's first is going to try to get you to pay this at closing. And if that doesn't work, you may have to do a payment plan. And then all else fail, where you can't do a payment plan, you can show documentation of that, then it can do the 5%. But ideally, if you can do a payment plan before all of this, I recommend that because this can delay your closing. Because the lender can catch this or the title company can catch this. They have a lot of technology and some of this stuff can be really old. So if you set up a payment plan, if you know you're going to be buying a home in the next couple months, you have a collection, set up a $20, $30 payment plan, get that in writing and keep that agreement. So if this pops up, it doesn't delay your closing and can potentially, you can lose your home, okay? All right, so real quick, we got to talk about VA and then conventional. So with VA, there's no condition necessary. Now, this does not mean with VA you can have a bunch of collections. It's just that the VA doesn't have guidelines and it's up to the underwriter discretion. Okay? So again, with VA, you really don't want collections, but they don't have a specific guideline where it has to be 5% like FHA. Now, with conventional, there's no requirement unless DU underwriting, desktop underwriting, this stands for desktop underwriting, flags it for payoff. So the way conventional works and VA is that we have this automatic underwriting system. So basically, after you put in all the information, you hit send, and it literally tells you if it's approved, not approved, refer eligible. It just does it for you. And I love the underwriting, the desktop underwriting system because it takes out like age and race and all that bias. It only looks at the numbers. So with conventional, you do need good credit. So if you have a collection on your report, a lot of times your credit too low anyway to qualify for conventional. So that's one reason why conventional doesn't really have any guidelines, but it's based off the underwriting system. The underwriting system literally sends it straight to Fannie and Freddie, and it comes back within 10, 20 seconds and lets us know whether you're approved or not. And if you're not approved, a good loan officer like me will put in different numbers and get it to say approved and then let you know, hey, this is what we need to get you approved. So that's how collections affect your mortgage. And again, mortgages are complex because lenders have a little bit of their own guidelines, and then Fannie and Freddie has their guidelines. So it's a little confusing. I always recommend applying with multiple lenders, at least 2. And I also always recommend that you talk and do Google and do your research, because if one lender says no because of your collection, another lender can say yes. And if you're having trouble with that kind of thing, drop me a comment. I'd love to help you or at least give you some guidance, lead you in the right direction, okay? So let's talk about judgments, okay? Can you see this? Talk about judgments, okay? Judgment. How does a judgment affect your ability for a mortgage? Now, judgment is a little more serious than a collection. So the following apply right here. The lender must verify that court-ordered judgment has resolved or been paid off prior to closing. So they want judgment paid off before closing. Regardless of the amount of the outstanding judgment, the lender must determine if the judgment was a result of the borrower disregard for financial obligation, so the borrower just irresponsible, or the borrower inability to pay for extraordinary circumstances. Those are things out of your control. So if you have a judgment, a lot of times it has to be paid off, or they can consider if it's something that you just had no control over. Now, also, there are some exceptions, okay? Remember, mortgages are not black and white. They're kind of like courts. Depends on what jury, what judge, what jurisdiction. That's how mortgages are. And a good loan officer advocates for you. They go to the underwriter and they, make the case. They say, hey, this borrower is this. Here's a letter of explanation. Here's this. A good loan officer will fight for you and get you approved if you have a judgment or collection. They'll at least do the best they can. So here's the exception here. A judgment is considered resolved if the borrower has entered into a valid agreement with the creditor to make regular payments, and the borrower has made timely payment for at least 3 months. So this is very important. So with a judgment, You can get a payment plan, but you got to make 3 payments. But here's the problem with that. If you have a home that you're buying, you don't have time to make 3 payments. See how that works? So if you have a judgment and you're planning on buying a home, set up that payment plan and make 3 payments, because I've had loans get disapproved because a judgment is a little bit different than a collection. So the exception to a judgment, you can have a payment plan set up and arrange to take care of it, but you got to make 3 on-time payments, and they're going to want proof of those payments, like bank statements. So now I want to switch gears a little bit here and just talk about what is a collection, how does a collection affect your credit, and what to do about a collection. And then next I'll talk about judgment. And again, if you have questions, drop me a comment below. And if you're finding value from this, give me a thumbs up, okay? So what is a collection on your credit? On your credit report, a collection is a negative remark. So it's a negative remark indicating an unpaid debt that had been sent to a collection agency. This happens when you fall significantly behind on payments with a creditor who eventually gives up trying to collect the directly and sells it to a third-party agency. So this is important. So the way collections work is that after a while, the person that you originally were supposed to make that payment to, let's just say it's Capital One, Capital One will give up. Let's just say you owe Capital One $500. They will give up and they will sell that debt to a collection agency for $300. The collection agency will come at you and try to get the $500. That's how it works. So if you have a collection, a lot of times you can negotiate with them and you don't have to pay back the original $500. A lot of people don't know that. Some people pay the original $500 to the collection agency and they make money off of you. But basically that's what a collection is. Now, what is a collection amount on your credit? So what is it? How does it affect your credit? Let's talk about that. Unpaid debt that has been transferred to a collection agency can be for various types of debt. This includes credit cards. It includes medical bills. Remember, medical bills do not affect your ability to get a mortgage, but it can still hurt your credit. Utilities. Unpaid loans, and more. They report it on your credit report by an agency. Now, let's talk about the impact. What is the impact on your credit? So they affect your negatively, of course. So negatively affects your credit score. Often significantly depends on the amount and age of the debt. So that's important there. So initially it hurts your credit, but over time, collections kind of fade. So if you pay off an old collection, it may not help your credit. Sometimes it can even hurt your credit because you just lost an account. Part of having credit is different accounts. But overall, it's going to help your credit. If you pay it off, it goes up. Remember, credit goes up and down. It makes it harder to attain new credit, like credit cards, loans, mortgages, and other forms of financing. So yes, so when having collections, it's kind of your character. So it doesn't make you automatic, like, no, you can't get more credit. But other lenders look at that and say, okay, what's going on here? Are they going to pay us? So that's why having that payment arrangement and taking care of collections really help. And this is important too. It can stay on your credit report up to 7 years from the original date of delinquent. So by law, it can stay on your credit report for 7 years, and then after that, it drops off. Now, sometimes it may not be on your credit report, but that lender can file some papers to the court and turn it into a judgment. And judgments may not show up on your credit report, and then years later, you go apply for a mortgage, and then it pops up. So even though something's been 7 years old, I've seen old stuff pop up. Like I had a client buy a home, no problem, and then they went to refinance with me, and an old Macy bill came up. They had to pay it. So it's weird. Some lenders catch it, some don't. But you really want that confidence when you apply for a mortgage that there's nothing going to pop up and nothing like that. Now, what can you do about a collection on your credit report? Now, number one, you could pay it off. So you can pay the debt off. You could negotiate a settlement, and that's just setting up a payment plan. And then you could dispute it. Dispute it means that you feel you don't owe the money. And a little tidbit here, I know some people that literally have a collection, but they disputed it, And the collection agency didn't have all the evidence and all the proof because they bought the debt and couldn't provide that to the credit bureaus and it got removed. But you really shouldn't do that. If you owe the money, go ahead and pay it. But those are your options. Either pay off the debt, negotiate a settlement or a payment plan, or dispute it. So those are basically your options. And I recommend, if you want to have excellent credit, and this channel is about excellent credit, do something. Do one of these three things to get that off your credit report. Now, I want to note something too. For a mortgage, you can't have disputes, okay? Because what a dispute is, you're saying it's inaccurate, and if you have too many, if you have any disputes, disputes are not factored into your credit score. So some underwriters will require you to resolve that dispute, and then they will rerun your credit to see what your credit score is. So some people think they can dispute everything and their credit goes up, but when you apply for a mortgage, you got to remove those disputes. So that's a little tidbit, just so you know, because I've seen people try to dispute everything on their credit report, and their credit went up because when it's disputed, it's not factored into your credit score. But if you don't win those disputes, then it's going to be factored into your credit score. So just know that. So I know this video is getting a little long. We're about 16 minutes in. Let's keep going. What is a judgment on your credit report? A judgment is more serious, okay? A judgment is a court order issued as the result of a lawsuit that legally requires you to pay a debt. It's different from collections in a few ways, okay? Let's get into those few ways right here. It stems from a court ruling, okay, in the credit failure as unpaid debt. It gives the creditor a legal authority to collect that debt through various means like garnish your wage, your bank account, put a lien on your property or you. So you really don't want things to get to judgment if you can, because now they can garnish your wage, take your money out of your bank account, put a lien on your property or a lien on you. A lien on you just means like if you apply for a mortgage, then they say there's a judgment against you. You have to pay that. So try to take care of collections before it becomes a judgment, because a lot of times these collection agencies will file these suits and you get a little letter in the mail and you don't pay attention. They show up, you don't show up, and then you lose, okay? And what's the impact of a judgment on your credit report? So basically, there's really no impact because it already was a collection. It hurts your credit. And as a judgment, it really doesn't affect. So no longer it directly appears on your credit report as of 2017. But the lender can still access to public records via court records. So yes, so judgment do not show up on your credit report. But again, lenders have these systems and they pop up. And I've had a few judgment pop up. Most of the time, in my case, in my experience being a loan officer, these judgments have been very small and they just paid it at closing and no big deal. But be very careful. These things could prevent your ability from getting the home of your dreams, and we don't want that. And then what can you do about a judgment? Again, you can pay it in full, you can negotiate, or you can file an appeal and challenge it. So those are your three options. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you have questions about a collection or judgment or having issues with it, let me know. Let me try to help you. My job is to help you get the home of your dreams. Thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumb up. Subscribe to this channel if you want to talk about financing and budgeting and having great credit and getting the home of your dream. Thank you so much. I'll see you again on the next video. Thanks.